who she admits into the room, which seems even more efficient than we've done in the past. She's also agreed to do an interpretive dance version of the official statement for our last meeting. So Ginger, if you would do some version of that, we could get started.
Wouldn't that be entertaining for everyone? Rather than do that, I will just read as usual, maybe with a little more enthusiasm than normal. How's that? So the Department of Education is excited to work with you on this opportunity to discuss the state's formula for funding public education. Let me let Chris in here real quick. Here we go. Before we begin, the department would like to remind you of the following. Conversations on this topic are not intended to reflect on the current BEP funding formula. The current BEP funding formula will remain in place until a new funding formula is recommended to and approved by the Tennessee General Assembly. The public is encouraged to submit comments in writing to ensure that all communications are thoroughly documented and can be reviewed and considered in the future. Public comment is encouraged to focus on developing a new funding formula rather than revising the current funding formula. Consider what should be funded in a new funding formula and at what level. Subcommittees will be responsible for reviewing public comment and making recommendations for what should be included in a new funding formula. While all committees, subcommittees, and members of the public should feel free to communicate openly, documents and records may be subject to public inspection pursuant to the Tennessee Public Records Act and be publicly posted or otherwise made available. All recommendations that are submitted by committees and subcommittees will be reviewed and considered, but not all recommendations will ultimately be included in the proposed new funding formula. So thank you guys, and I'll pass it back over to you, Dan.
Thank you, Ginger. So as I see the most important remaining work we have to do, just as an overview of how we're going to spend the next time together, one is to continue and finish a conversation around outcomes, and then jump right into a conversation around policy recommendations. From my perspective, both going back through the record of all of our meetings to date, as well as looking at issues raised in the town halls, and I have now read virtually every comment. There's clear interest both from our group and the public around issues of compensation, teacher and principal pay. There also seems to be question around the size of the pie, adequacy of resources. Those are two that I would suggest we start our conversation with when we get to policy. And then if other members want to add additional items and we have time, I'd love to do that. But that's where I would like us to go. And then if there's anything left of the time after we've finished policy, there are a couple of hanging things out there that we could address. But let's jump right into outcomes. As I think we know, as a team, we've identified third grade reading, on-time completion of algebra, and ready grad indicators, which include the ACT score, the AP, the IB, the CLE, industrial certifications are all part of the ready grad indicators. We indicated those as our outcomes. So I think there are a couple of questions we should wrestle with. One is, are there any others? And two is, how are we going to measure these? Is this just performance? Is it growth? I know a number of you have expressed concern about it being that we consider growth. Is it a combination of that? Is it a weighting for some students who are traditionally underserved? But anyhow, so I think there are questions about the weighting of these, as well as which ones, whether it's simply growth. So I'll stop framing and just let people have at it. Wherever you want to enter in on this conversation, whether there are others you want to enter or how you want to weigh them. So.
Well, I'm happy to go first, but obviously really interested in learning what others think. I feel very strongly that we don't want to create a self-fulfilling prophecy that our wealthier districts become wealthier and our poorer districts become poorer because of this outcomes metric. And so either it needs to be, I mean, I feel very passionate about the fact that it needs to be either growth-based or that we would weight certain students more if they're, if we have economically disadvantaged students hitting the AP and whatever other early post-secondary outcomes or whatever it is, I would want those students to be weighted heavier just so we don't, again, continue to put, I mean, the correlation between socioeconomic status and performance is just too high to ignore. And so that's where I am, but welcome, really interested to hear wherever others are.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly with Katie there that we have to look at economically disadvantaged kids and make sure that, like you said, that self-fulfilling prophecy doesn't come about. That's probably my main concern also.
As well as those special populations, I know certainly Stan, as well as Katie, dealing with a little bit larger Hispanic populations than maybe some of us are. That's a real concern that those folks are factored in there, and those resources follow that as well.
So is there consensus around that it's the special populations, the economic disadvantage, and the full grouping of special populations, English language learners, special needs students? Is that what we're saying? All right, since this is being videotaped, I don't have to read into the record that everybody was shaking their head yes. So I think we have unanimity on that. So, and what about the conversation around weighted versus growth?
So are you saying that then an ELL grade or whatever outcome would be weighted more than just a typical student?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking, and yeah.
Yeah. So why wouldn't they just follow the same weights that they follow for funding?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Stan. And if I remember correctly, our expert from Excel and Ed kind of hit on this a little bit too, that the weights, to avoid the self-fulfilling prophecy, the weights just need to be appropriate for those student subgroups so that, they're getting, but the question of growth, I mean, you could also just say that, that a district that has specific growth scores, that does help eliminate some of that correlation with socioeconomic status. So I could really go either way, but I kind of am with Stan that it's like if we're going to have those weight section, why not just use the same weights categories for the outcomes? But again, want to hear from you guys.
I just think that makes it cleaner and you're not creating something new.
I see some head shaking yes. Anybody want to add words to those head shakes? Okay, I agree with the conversation. If that's helpful to add to that, I'm wondering if anybody else, do we have some consensus around that then, that we would keep the weights that are part of the new funding formula in rewarding the outcomes for special for the special populations that would include economically disadvantaged. Ginger, that's going to be pretty hard to put into a single sentence, but I know you can do it. Ginger, as you look back on what we need to say on outcomes, do you want to ask, help me here, is there something else we should make sure we wrestle with?
So let me make sure that I have this captured correctly. So it sounds like there is the recommendation from this group would be to add those groups that are defined in the unique learning needs section of the weights, add those groups as the subgroups for outcomes. Do I have that part right? So, and already in the outcomes, there is a defined weight for economically disadvantaged. So there's all students, and then it's weighted for economically disadvantaged. So it would be adding in the additional groups that are defined in that unique learning needs section. Do I have all of that? Okay.
I do just want to call out what you said that I know is accurate, but I just want to make sure everybody on the committee hears that, which is that a district would be rewarded for each student who met the outcome, and then additional award for for students with special needs or special populations. Right? It's not just moving a subset of kids; it's any student.
And Ginger, I would love to refer back to Matthew's presentation from Excel and Ed, because he did say very clearly that weight is important, that the amount of that weight is important. So just giving a tiny bit more dollars to an EL student making those outcomes is not going to cover it. So whatever he said, I thought was pretty powerful.
Okay, I'll make reference to that in so that'll be in our notes to connect back to that video piece. I'm going to do a sidebar really quickly and check. We have somebody calling in from a 423-620 number. I don't know if that's Representative Hawk or if that's somebody else. So I want to make sure I capture who we have joining.
It is
Okay.
Representative Hawk. I'm still having difficulties getting on the video link. It tells me it doesn't recognize the address, so I still cannot get in my video, but happy to listen.
Excellent. Well, feel free to jump in at any moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Were you able to hear the conversation so far?
I caught the last 4 or 5 minutes of it, not at the start.
All right. Are you comfortable with where we landed on the outcomes?
I'm fine. Just don't stop progress for me. Just keep on going.
Well, we like consensus. That's great. Thank you so much. Okay. Ginger, as you look at what we need to do in our final meeting report, have we done what we needed to do? Is there anything else on outcomes?
No, I think you all have covered everything you need to on outcomes. I think you're good.
Terrific. Okay, thank you so much. Let's then, Ginger, you and I had a conversation Friday, but I have slept since then, not much, but some. I think the next issue is policy recommendations, right?
I think you wanted to have them look at the direct funding and respond to what was in the framework as a result of maybe a comment Katie had made last week. So I can share just that direct funding piece from the framework and just let everyone kind of reflect on that and see if there's any comments there.
Okay, I'm going to limit our time here on about 10 minutes, but that'd be great. So I don't know if Representative Hawk can see that. The three issues for direct funding, you probably remember them, are fast growing and tutoring, fast growing districts, tutoring, and CCTE. And the question here, Ginger, is are members in agreement that these are the right items for direct funding?
Yes, if they're, do these seem right to you all? Are there any reflections on this that you all wanted to add? Because this was not one that you all had conversation about before.
Katie, I saw your comment in the chat. Would you share it? I think that's exactly right.
Yeah, I don't want to be speaking so much, so I thought I could type that one, but yes, I will share it instead. So yeah, I think that my thought here was just a little bit more clarity that the state could provide around what would be included in direct funding as opposed to something that would just be added to the base weight, the base amount for the student. And so, you know, why would fast growing be here? Why would tutoring be here? Why would CTE be here instead of adding what would be CTE dollars to the base amount, for instance? I think it's I was thinking that it was because of kind of one-time things like you might need funding that supports pandemic responses, or you might need fund like the tutoring, or you might need funding that supports time allocated things like fast growing. But I wasn't quite clear why CTE was included here. So that's just what it flagged for me. But I'm comfortable moving forward. I don't need to have further discussion. I just thought the criteria needed to be identified better.
That's something our expert also pointed out, as I remember. Important that we're clear about what becomes direct funding, so the list doesn't keep growing and become politicized. Other items for direct funding? Okay, we're going to stop while we're making progress and move on to the policy issues. Okay. What I was wondering, I think we've, as a group, talked around 3 issues. One of the issues is that we've talked a good bit about is adequacy. We've also talked about compensation, particularly teacher pay and ways to recruit and retain good teachers. And there's been some conversation around making sure that the funding public money stays in public schools. Those were the 3 policy issues that I felt I heard the most from this committee and want to have us discuss. But I'm wondering if somebody wants to take any of those and speak to them.
I think one of the things that I've heard from folks in this area was make sure that you're funding all the teachers that are needed. You know, right now at the BEP, you get a certain number of teachers, but that doesn't always cover all of your classrooms. So that would, I think that would be, I guess that falls under the pay part of it for teachers. But, I've had a couple of superintendents say, hey, look, if they just pay for all the teachers that we really need and then the administrators that we really need, we can figure the rest of it out. So I'd just throw that out there.
Stan, I'm wondering also, that could also be under the adequacy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Issue. Well, we're a little quieter than normal. Chris, you looked like you wanted to say something, or should I? No? Okay.
I could add on this topic, and just something I've heard repeatedly here from our teachers is not only what we're covering now about having enough teachers, but access to PD that's meaningful with ways to retain teachers so we can advance their roles, and that also includes predictable bonuses or salary increases. There's a lot of teachers leaving the profession. So I know we're talking about fully funding, but we also have to have the conversation about retaining those that are in the system now. So that's been top of mind, more so than even the base salary. What I've heard here, it's build a predictable system or process that we can contribute to, benefit from, and then understand how we can progress professionally within public education.
Well, I think, to piggyback off of that is, we want to talk about teachers being professionals, then let's pay them as professionals.
Stan, can I, just because we've got so little time, can I push you a little bit and just sort of get you to expand out on what that might look like as a recommendation? I mean, I've heard that every place I've gone and it happened, 3 times this week, where I've been people saying we need teacher pay as a major concern, and frankly, principal pay. So can I push you on just giving us the beginnings of an outline? What would that look like? Anybody else want to go ahead, Stan? If you, I didn't mean to pick on you.
Well, I don't know where that starts. I mean, if you've got somebody on a bachelor's level, obviously it's going to be different if you've got somebody on a master's level. A lot of teachers are coming out of undergrad or out of school now with a 5-year degree, and they've already got that master's, and starting them out at $30,000 or $35,000 is, in my mind, ridiculous. I mean, they can go somewhere else with that degree and start out at $50,000 or $60,000. And I'm not advocating that be that point, but I think that's my whole point, though, is that we got to look at these, as professionals. They put that time, the money, and you don't go into education for the money, but we better pay the money to keep the people in education.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think what frustrates me about the current system is that it sends us a message that our teachers are just not nearly as important as they really are. And so I would love to see a new funding formula that centers the teacher, the role of the teacher, as inspirational, critical to the effectiveness, which we know it is, of course, of our schools, is aspirational, is motivating. And so having some type of we're going to pay our teachers, we're going to have a funding formula that pays our teachers at least the national average, or better than the national average, or best in the region. That's the type of motivation that I would love to see, the kind of inspiration that I'd love to see from this formula.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Okay, if we had more time, I'd let it marinate, but can we kind of work that into a recommendation?
I guess the recommendation would be to look at least a Southeast average, and make sure that our starting teacher pay is at least on par with the average. I mean, what's the rest of you think? I don't know if we want to go with the Southeast average, a national average. Obviously the national average is going to be much higher because it's driven by other states who obviously pay much higher, but the cost of living is much higher.
I guess I'll weigh in a little bit and say I'd love to have us. I like where this is going, because I do think this is what we've heard from so many people, and I would like to be aspirational, and so I liked some of the language, Katie, that you had: aspirational, motivational, and not that it's a huge difference, Stan, but maybe above the regional average, not just being the average, but being above the average. Yeah. Which opens up a huge area. Scott, are you in a good place on this? You look like you wanted to say something.
Well, I am, and just to add to Stan's thoughts there, I've had a chance 3 of the past 4 years to attend a job fair for teachers over close to the University of Tennessee's campus that not only included UTK grads, College of Education, but also from other local schools in the afternoon would send their grads over. And the school districts that showed up to recruit these potential educators were all from the Southeast. You wouldn't see any from Ohio, any of those spots, but you would see folks from South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, those type of scenarios. So I think a Southeast viewpoint is a smart approach. And also go back to Chris, one of your predecessors, Buzz Thomas, when he was there, Knox County's goal at that point was to be the best school district in the Southeast United States. And I think that puts us in a like scenario to be able to compare ourselves against and doesn't throw the things out of whack versus some of our Northeast states and cities that pay phenomenal numbers.
But obviously, as you say, also have incredible cost of living expenses. Scott, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I am trying to move us here. Were you thinking best in region? Or when you said that, I mean, I know Buzz well. I do remember best school district in the Southeast language. Are you thinking our teachers should be best paid in the region, among the best paid in the region? Do we want to be above average in the South?
I mean, my thought would be at least above average of whatever we identify as that group of states, that our starting pay in Tennessee is going to be above the average of those states.
It might be, well, no, I don't know if it is actually. We're going to be close to that for the starting pay. Average pay will be a little different.
I started to say, I was trying to look up a ranking and do some of the math in my head, which I'm not good at, but yeah, we might already be at the average or right at that cut. So
it looks like Alabama's starting salary is higher than the state of Tennessee, 41,000. Tennessee is roughly 38 and change.
we want to pass Alabama. Would that be a goal? We need to be above Alabama.
Be good to beat them in something.
It would be nice. This may be our only shot for some time.
So I think we aspire to be, more than that, and starting salary obviously is different from average salary. Do we want to move towards the best in the region, among the best in the region language?
And should we also focus on compensation? Again, salary is just one piece. How do we make sure it encompasses bonuses and everything else that the state can consider on behalf of educators?
Well, and also let's, benefits, having paid insurance, having, all these other things. I know sometimes I can speak to Hamlin County. Our salary has not always been the top, but because of the benefits that we're able to offer, it made it much more attractive. I don't want to see salary become the only issue.
So Stan, what I heard there was salary, benefits, and Chris, I saw in the chat also professional learning. So it's a total package of support for teachers that would make Tennessee teachers, that would inspire Tennessee teachers and make them. Who wants to finish that sentence?
World class, best in class. I think, Amy, sorry, not Amy, Katie, the new formula should aim to provide best in region compensation for our teachers, ensuring a world-class experience. The wordsmithers are on the line. I play connect the dots. I'm not a word guy, but again, if we can just focus on that compensation piece. I've been in too many meetings where you focus on salary and then next thing you know, everything else disappears. So I think that needs to be top of mind.
I like that. I like that a lot. Ginger, I'm not envying you your job on wordsmithing this, but there is some growing consensus. Best in region is the language we've kind of agreed to. Is that right? Okay, I'm seeing Head nods across the board. Great. Best in
Yeah,
region.
I want to be best in region. I do. I want the state of Tennessee to be best in the region. I don't, I think we can do that. All right, sorry, just got a little excited.
No, I
there.
think that's great. And I like defining compensation as a series. I'm not sure what the right word is, but it's more than salary. It's more than benefits. It's more than professional development. It's all those things wrapped together. And we want to be best in region. To demonstrate our commitment to our educators and our children and our future.
Yeah.
Almost how we emphasize like the dollar we invest as a district per student. Like, I don't know if there's a better way to word that for what we invest in teachers per person. Not saying that well, but yes, a total compensation package. But if there were a way to associate, we also mean this is what we're investing in you as a professional.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it because, we're talking about what are we going to invest in our students? Well, we got to invest in our teachers too. Absolutely.
So Ginger, unfair, but would you give us sort of where you're at on that, and just so we can all hear it back, and we'll keep. So my understanding, ultimately, you will send us all a next version of it, and we'll be able to weigh in on that in the very short period of time. So this isn't the final draft, but it's getting close. What do you have so far, Ginger?
This is what I have for what it's worth, so please correct me. A funding formula that provides best in region total compensation package, including salaries, benefits, and professional development to emphasize our investment in educators that inspires them to be world class.
That reminds me of one thing that also has come up in here. And I don't know if it fits here or somewhere else, but part of what I've heard from teachers is providing protected in-school time for planning. Does that fall into this, or where does that fall? And I know it might be a curveball, Dan, but besides the professional development, this is the one thing I keep hearing about over and over again, the chance to plan and prepare and be ready to educate.
I think that may fall more like at that
JD, like a job description.
yeah,
What does it
that
actually
local
mean to be?
level. Yeah.
And I think Lisa's point is really important, what she
I
just
do
wrote
too.
down there.
Lisa, can I pull you off mute and have you just so everybody hears it?
Sure. I think when we talk about teachers, we talk about educators in our minds, but sometimes we don't say that word to include the other professionals that are making sure those students succeed. So if we're going to talk about Tennessee setting the standard for teachers, I think we should include those other education professionals like your administrators. We've already had several discussions about the importance of having those school counselors, the importance of having nurses. Well, all of those have got to be competitive salaries, or we will not get the top for that either. And if you don't have if those support staff members that are really needed for education aren't at that top, the ultimate classroom teachers will also feel that they don't have that support. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think it is right on to what we have said and what we have heard. I want to be clear, when you say administrators, you include principals in that.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
That would be your principals, your anybody who's not a classroom teacher but still an educator.
Yeah. Certificated personnel, maybe. Yeah. Right. So Ginger, that's another tweak to that, but I think I saw general agreement to that comment, to Lisa's comment. Anything else we want on this comment around teachers and administrators? Educators, sorry. Okay, we have the beginnings of something there, actually, second draft there. Ginger, are you feeling good enough with what you've heard that do you need any clarification?
I think we're in a good place. For right now, I just added as a second sentence, just that definition of how you all would define educators as those certified personnel, and then listed some examples for those. So I think we're in a good place on that one.
Ginger, the list we got of policy included 2 around teacher salary. Have we essentially done what we were asked to do in terms of providing guidance, or is there something we need to tackle before we go on to the adequacy question?
So I will pose those back to you all and let you all see if there's anything else you would add. So the 2 questions were, what, if any, requirements should the formula require on investing new education dollars into existing educator salaries moving forward? And the second is, are there any other policies for teacher salaries that should be included?
So I'm wondering that first question, and I'm wondering if people have a point of view on it. It does seem to perhaps raise the issue of making sure that teacher compensation or educator compensation continues to track fully. I know there have been issues when a district gets money, if they have more teachers than the BEP provides, they don't get a full salary increase, right? And that's, I think, what that question is begging, or that request. So is there anything we can do to R, or is that too deep in the weeds and we should stay at the level we're at? So I don't hear a will to try and adjust that specifically for that issue. I do wonder, Ginger, when I see all this back to us, there is an issue about maintaining and making sure that we don't just reach that place, but that we maintain it. And I think it begs that question as well. So maybe there's a way to further fine tune it. Lisa,
maybe that's just an adjustment in the statement that you all just made to say it provides and maintains the best in region total compensation, so on.
I think that would be good for me. I mean, how do other people feel about that? I think, maintains is what we're getting at. And Lisa, I think you and I might have had a conversation around that whole issue around making sure that the salaries stay. Does that get to the question you were raising?
I don't know which conversation you're talking about. I'm sorry. Are you sure it was with me?
Yeah, I thought it was. I thought there was a concern. Somebody raised, sorry, it might have been a different meeting. I thought it was a concern about making sure that salaries tracked with inflation or didn't.
Yeah, that wasn't with me, but I would agree with whoever said that.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Or it could have been, and my memory's gone.
Well, it's probably mine. Sorry, but thanks for playing along with that anyhow. Okay, let's move on then. I think we've done this issue well. I guess I want to see where we can get. It has been raised in every meeting I've been in with this group and every meeting I've been out in the public around the issue of investment in our public schools and wondering if how we start on that.
And Dan, I want to go back. I'm so sorry. That was in the email that I sent you. I'm so sorry. Like,
Yeah, okay, I'm
so
not
I'm like,
crazy.
wait.
Well,
And I was like, well, I did say that to someone. It was an email I sent. It wasn't a conversation. That was it. I apologize. So I did raise that up, and the fact that it needs to go up because what is now is not adequate for 10 years from now, or you are right.
so the maintain will do it, right? If we,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, well,
okay.
yes.
Good.
Sorry. And I'm so sorry.
No, no worries. So, what, if anything, do we want to say about investing in the public schools? Resources available.
I'd really like to see us meet or exceed the national average here on per pupil expenditure, because we are at 40 whatever sixth in the country right now. Like that is, we're never going to get our kids where they need to be at that level. So I think we need to at least get to closer to the average or somewhere. I'm not sure if that's what you were thinking about, Dan, but that type of aspiration would be helpful.
Something, Ginger, did you, sorry, I'm not good with was that something we had? What do you have so far?
What I put in the chat is just your previous statement, so you all have it in front of you before you leave the meeting. So that is not the per pupil that was Katie just mentioned.
I see. That was the teacher. Yeah.
The educator, the certified personnel piece.
Sorry.
And I think by keeping that and maintains in there would address the whole issue of that cost of living.
Great. Do we want to try and parallel what we have for teachers for public schools?
What is the
Southeast
average?
If we're looking at Southeast, and you'll have to correct me on the states. I'm a Yankee via Florida, so Tennessee, North Carolina is at 9.3, South Carolina 10.7, Georgia 10.8, Alabama 9.8, Mississippi 9.0. We're at 9.5. Kentucky is 11.1, and Florida is at 9.6. Did I miss any states that you all needed to hear?
Did you get Virginia in there?
Virginia is 12.2.
I mean, there's West Virginia, we sometimes have Oklahoma thrown into the Southeast, we have Arkansas there, but I think that gives us a good coverage, Chris.
Chris, what did you say Georgia was?
10.8.
Okay.
And I was wondering, and I've done some thinking about this. I just wonder, is our recommendation for some kind of dramatic investment, or that there's an opportunity for that would fully support the new funding formula? I mean, so to make sure that there are the resources to do what we've all laid out in the base, so that it would, there needs to be, to do what we've said the base should have, needs more money. So something that would be significant, dramatic, whatever, to fully fund this new student base formula.
Well, if we're going to say we want to lead the Southeast in teacher salaries, why wouldn't we want to lead the Southeast in per pupil expenditure?
Love it.
Because that doesn't, if I think the top one I heard you say that, Chris, was maybe around 12.
Virginia was at 12.2.
12.2. That's not a dramatic increase. Now, I guess whenever you take every student into account, yeah, it's pretty dramatic. But $1,500 a student, I don't think would be seen as a dramatic increase.
Chris, what was the Tennessee quote that you have from the source you're using?
It's 9.5.
Yeah, I think we're a little higher than that, but I hear you, Stan. I always thought we were closer to 11.
Well, there's a difference between funding and spending, and I'm trying to find it all and bring it
Yeah.
all together. Yeah, so I think
I
perhaps
think
that's where we should.
comparisons are probably right. You know, we're
Yes.
probably about there different to the other states, but
So I'm wondering though, is there a benefit in talking about fully funding a new formula rather than trying to figure out what others are spending? Because, you know, I think what we want to do is make sure for this new vision, we want to make sure there's adequate, fully funded the new formula. And I think that will take a dramatic increase, but it's within our reach, right? I think that's what we aspire to.
and just that critical term recurring, not using one-time funds for this year or something with our big surplus that we have.
Well, I think we have to take into account too that we're weighting some of these students too, so there's going to be more funding available through that mechanism. So that's going to drive that up.
So it's a new student based student weighted funding formula, and we would take a new investment, an additional investment that would enable us to do what we said we needed to do.
Yeah.
Ginger, I'd look to you for some guidance on this. I think we want to be in the right place on this. Any advice or comments as you're watching this develop?
I don't know that I have any, advice on that. I think it's just more about what is the statement that you all want to make. At one point, someone mentioned maybe making it mirror the other statement that you all have made. I mean, that might be the direction you all want to go, or it may be a different direction. So, I mean, I definitely defer to you guys on what you feel is best here.
Thoughts on that?
I mean, I think personally, I think I'm out over my skis a little bit on this one, just because I'm not an economist and don't really know the intricacies of our state budget. So I kind of am with you, Dan, on just having some aspirational language about ensuring recurring sustainable dollars to meet the needs of our expectations, outlined in the formula. But that might not be as inspirational, but I'm just personally not an expert on the amount piece.
Thanks, Katie. Other thoughts on it?
I agree with Katie. I think it just needs to, our statement needs to say that, this new student-based funding formula will do what we want it to do. We want to make sure that it's recurring, to make sure that it keeps up and keeps doing what we want it to do. I don't know how to say that. I know what I want it to do, but I don't really know how to say that.
Well, we'll get another bite at the apple as Ginger sends this out to us, but I'm wondering maybe the why we should state. The reason we want to do this has something to do with having terrific schools, providing our children the future that they want, the future that they deserve, and helping grow Tennessee's economy. I mean, I just sort of think of why are we doing this? It's not just to spend more, it's to deliver on our promise to our kids, our promise to our economy, right?
And Katie, you were right. I just found everything. What I reported was funding and versus spent. So in Tennessee, it's 11,139 spent per student, making us 44th out of 51 states. So that puts things into context, especially around the local piece and the recurring. What I would also add, coming from Florida, ours was called recurring, but it was never fully funded. Tallahassee always found loopholes. So language around recurring and fully funded I think would be critical going forward, because that loophole was taken advantage of often in the state of Florida.
Thanks, Chris. So where are we so far? An investment that fully funds a new student-based, student-weighted formula to create future for our students and a strong economy. Are those the pieces we have? Something close there. What did I miss? Scott, you had from the, I'm sorry.
I just feel like it, and it's probably inappropriate to do it, but we ought to have something in there that says, rather than our embarrassingly low current investment in public education. 44th? Are you kidding me? I know it's been that way for years, but goodness gracious. When are we going to get serious?
So throw some words out there. What would you want at the end of that sentence? Or, I mean, I'm not sure I want to go negative, but certainly aspirational, but you know, whatever you want.
I'll leave that up to Ginger. She's really good at wordsmithing, but she'll clean it up. She's used to cleaning up her guys in her life.
I definitely want to take, like what you all are sharing. I think so far we have, the recurring, fully funded, sustainable. And I think someone's put something in the chat.
I did, but it's not showing up. So let me try to type that
I can
again.
highlight it and pull it out.
It was really weird.
I'm having the same trouble. That's why I keep asking people to say what they typed into the chat, because it doesn't stay for me, and that's probably me. But
see, I'm a typer. Like I think while typing, so that's why I like the chat a lot. But I know it's not best.
I think one of the things that we as a foundation have pushed is that an educated citizenry leads to a healthy economy. And I think that's something that we can throw in there, that knowing the importance of an educated citizenry tying to a healthy economy, we feel like that the student-based formula needs to be, and Chris, what you said, recurring and fully funded, whatever that leads to.
Scott, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you've touched on something that I certainly have heard everywhere I've gone, and maybe to frame it positively a little bit, to move Tennessee as a leader in public education. Or
I think certainly language that includes that, but also something that equates our investment in education with our investment at recruiting businesses and trying to grow a strong economy for Tennessee. On one side, we're being very aggressive and going after that, but we're not bringing along the education side along with that to produce a workforce that's going to be able to make that happen for our state. So some language that correlates our vision for growth for our state that includes education in lockstep with that.
I saw heads nodding throughout that.
So I want to read what Katie put in the chat and see if that resonates with maybe what you just shared, Scott, and how we might be able to incorporate maybe a little more of that in there. So she shared, we recommend that Tennessee make a historic and dramatic reoccurring investment in K-12 public education and annually fully fund that fully supports a new funding formula that will transform our schools, strengthen our economy, and provide our children with the great education they deserve. What else might you add in there to kind of get at what you were speaking to, Scott?
And tear that apart. That's just a starting place.
I don't have any problem with that at all.
Do we want to say anything about pathways to jobs in there? Or, I mean, you know, we're making a huge push toward CTE, EPSOs, and all of that, you know, and rightfully so, rightfully so. To Scott's point, you know, we always, anytime a business or an industry comes in to a county, that's the one thing they want to know is, can you provide my workforce for me? So we've got to make sure that, you know, I guess I'm saying this because a lot of times when we talk about the great education they deserve, and they do deserve a great education, but it's always looked at as just academics, just getting them to college. And that's not what we're wanting to say. We want to, you know, again, provide multiple pathways to that great education.
Yeah, I agree with that, Stan. Something along, you know, ensuring our students have access. I don't have the words yet, but I totally agree with what you said.
Great future, a great employment career, something in that lane, not, you know, not, I don't know, I don't mean to say not just an education, but it's an education to enable a career is central to it, right?
Right, right, right.
All right, we've got something, and Ginger, I know this is unfair, but appreciate you sending us something we can all electronically respond to it. Ginger, are there other things? I mean, those were the two or so topics that we consistently talked about over the weeks and the public's talked about. Are there other policy recommendations we need to weigh in on?
I just placed, just based on your all's conversation there, tried to insert that wording that you all agreed needed to be in there. So I'll let you look at that and see if that's helpful at all, or I can move back to the previous iteration of that. Those were the ones, the policies that you've just talked about are the ones that you had highlighted, Dan, that you felt like were the ones this group were most equipped to talk about. So I think at this point, it's really if there are any others that the group feels really strongly that they have the background and the knowledge to really engage in. So.
Do you want to put up that list, Ginger? Are there any in particular? I know you had gotten a little bit of guidance for us. Are there any others that we could be helpful on that? I know the issue around salaries was one of the ones we were kind of.
Dan, are we going to get cut off in right now? Just I saw that alert come up.
No, you won't.
Okay.
Only if you kick yourself out. So the two that were that would be helpful for us to have additional feedback from various groups, obviously all of these, but ones that you all may feel have some strong, you know, thoughts on are if there are any outcomes. So when we think about those outcome measures that we've already talked about as a group, but if there are some other outcomes that you all can think of for middle school and for elementary schools, that would be helpful feedback for us to consider as a department. If you think back to the list of what is in that draft framework, many of those do live at that high school level. So we don't have as many things to consider there for elementary and middle school. So besides teacher salaries, the outcomes were ones that kind of higher priority that this group could probably provide some feedback on. If you have any quick thoughts on that.
We did say an outcome of third grade reading level. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a certain level that a student should reach at fifth grade math, let's say, so that they're on track to be able to get algebra done at the right time? I know we've got an algebra outcome in there, but I don't know if there's a fifth grade math level that they need to be on.
And not all of our districts have fifth grade in the elementary years either, which is a challenge.
Yeah, and that's an issue.
They should, in my opinion, but they don't.
Absolutely.
Speaking on behalf of my own district.
Yeah. Well, and ninth grade ought to be in the middle school, but I'm not going to go there.
I'd honestly rather see sorry, Stan, I know.
No,
I'd probably rather see a narrowing of the high school outcomes rather than creation of new elementary and middle school outcomes. I can't remember if ACT is in the high school outcomes, but that makes me very uncomfortable. So I just would rather see fewer outcomes, and then that really helps districts focus on what the state prioritizes the most.
And I think, Katie, that's part of that is, as far as the elementary, like I'm an elementary only district, and there's several elementary districts across Tennessee. So I think that's what they were looking for districts like mine. So you have one outcome they're looking at it, which is that third grade reading. That said, I don't have a suggestion for it. I'm just saying, I think the reason it's not for you guys that have K through 12, it's for us who are the elementary only, and how do they measure that? Would that be correct, Ginger?
Yes. And then we do have a few districts who are only elementary and middle school. And so they might only have that third grade and not have any other measures either to look at there. And so, you know, when we think about the K-12s, they would have the literacy, they would also have that ready graduate, and then a few others. And that ACT one lives under that ready graduate indicator. So if you have, I don't want to put pressure on people in here to just stare at you while you have to ponder new ideas. But if you have anything that comes to you later that you think, oh, this might be a really great outcome for either elementary or middle schools, please send those over. And I'll be happy to pass those along as suggestions, because we definitely want to try to come up with some other ideas if groups have them. So please don't hesitate to send that over. And we'll definitely share them. I think that's it as far as policies, unless someone has another one that's really jumping out at them that they'd like to talk through. I can scroll through this list quickly and see if there's something else, but I know we're over time at this point.
And Ginger, you had indicated that there are obviously 17 other subcommittees, and some of these are uniquely designed for their response, just as we are asked to look at the teacher salaries issues and maybe the outcomes. I'm suspecting that other subcommittees are looking at other specific questions. So we've sort of done our duty on the ones we needed to respond to. The outcomes perhaps not as helpful to the department but I think you heard the will of the group was not, and I think we heard from our expert, be careful about having too many outcomes. So I think we've kind of stayed with that.
All right, well, I have kind of as summary from you guys today, we are from the outcomes section. You all want to have the unique learning needs added as part of that outcomes subgroups that would be looked at for the outcomes section. Direct funding some more clarity needs to be provided around that so it's clear really where that funding is coming from and that it isn't the one-time funding. And then under all of the policy pieces, get scrolling down here to that part. Let's see. We have the statement of a funding formula that provides and maintains best in region total compensation package, including salaries, benefits, and professional development to emphasize our investment in educators. And then educators are defined as the certified personnel such as administrators, counselors, social workers, nurses, etc. And then the statement on the investment on the student side of that is we recommend that Tennessee make a historic and dramatic reoccurring annual fully funded investment in K-12 public education that fully supports a new funding formula that will transform our schools, strengthen our economy, and provide a great education for our children with pathways to college and career. How does that sound to everyone? What did I get wrong that I need to fix? Don't hesitate to tell me.
Can we impose on you to have you send those out to us later on today or tomorrow?
Sure.
And you need us to respond back to you by no later than close of business Thursday or Friday, or what's the deadline?
I would need those back by close of business tomorrow so I can get those turned around pretty quickly and submitted for your group.
Terrific. Ginger, we would obviously not have gotten to this point without all your support. And I really want to thank you personally, and I suspect on behalf of the group for all that you've done. I agree. Thanks to Scott. Thanks a lot, Ginger. And I want to thank everybody on this committee. This has been a little bit of a whirlwind, but I think deeply thoughtful from across the state. People really thinking about these issues and providing some useful input to the state. And all of us have full-time day jobs. So we did this in addition, and I just want to thank everybody for here we are again over time. But I think we've gotten something that's useful and in the interests of our state and our kids. And I want to thank everybody for that. Ginger, anything else we should do? And I want to open the floor if anybody else, I don't need to be the only one saying final words here. Anybody else? Floor is open.
I definitely want to say thank you guys so much. It has been such a wonderful experience to get to know you all this way and get to spend time with you over the last couple months. I'm not sure I would have gotten to meet you all otherwise, but it has been an absolute joy. And so I really appreciate this opportunity, getting to learn from you guys and getting to spend time with you, and really appreciate your all's investment in this work. And I hope that in the draft framework and then also moving forward, you get to see the outcomes of all of your input for this work. So thank each and every one of you for your hard work, the work you did in between meetings, and then your engagement throughout the meeting. So thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.
Ginger and Dan, thank you all for the leadership that you had there and everything. We do appreciate that. And Representative Hawk, I really appreciate you being involved with this. I know this has been a whirlwind. I hope that time is taken to really study this and get it right here, and instead of getting it done fast. And I'm sure you all will do that.
And it was
Thank
great to
you.
meet
I'll jump
everyone
in.
too. Oh, sorry, Representative, go ahead.
No, I've been a little hamstrung today because I can't see the faces, but I've listened to everything, and the ideas and the passion that I've heard from everyone in our group has been tremendous. So I thank you, and we appreciate the opportunity. Much more work is ahead of us, and I think with your investment, everybody on this call and the other 17 subcommittees that have been meeting, we're going to do better by our Tennessee students. So I thank you all.
last call. Okay, well, everybody stay well and thank you. And I know there'll be some final back and forth before the week's out, and look forward to seeing what this provides our state. Thanks.
Thank you guys so
Thank you.
much. Take
See you.
care.
Thanks, everyone.